And what we can say is that life has solved, I think there's extra mics in here, most of the challenges, if not all of the challenges that we of a species of our own have come to deal with. Life has learned to be locally reliant, all right? Getting its nutrients, its water, its minerals, its nutrition, its structure, its support from its local environment. Life has learned to adapt to place. No matter where it is, you will find organisms that fit in those locations. Living well with precious and scarce resources. This is a mullock, and it actually can wick water out of sand, damp sand. It can put its belly in damp sand and wick enough water to drink from, right? Finding strategies that allow one to thrive in a particular place. Life has learned to farm, right? These are leafcutter ants. They actually don't eat the leaves that they farm. They eat the fungus that grows on the leaves that they farm. Life has created shelter as needed, protected from the elements. Same challenges that we have. Life builds strong and lightweight materials with minimal amounts of minerals going into them, using benign manufacturing. Spider silk, ounce for ounce, is stronger than steel, better than Kevlar. It's made up of chopped up fly parts, right? In the body of the manufacturer. If you went into a Kevlar manufacturing facility, you'd have to put on a major suit and, wear a gas mask to protect yourself. Life gathers light. This is your fern. This is the Kilkenny fern. Incredibly translucent, but yet can harvest enough energy from deep, dark shade and actually doesn't even like bright light. So life's learned to gather light, to create colors, no different than we have. Brilliant, brilliant colors that don't fade, don't use heavy metals to make them. Life has learned to waterproof. This duck is actually gathering the preen oil from some glands at the base of its tail, and it grooms itself like we might comb our hair, and it pulls its feathers through its beak and smooths out the feathers. And when it does so, it puts the preen oil on there, which waterproofs, right? So it's combing and waterproofing at the same time. But also, the duck has figured out that preen oil makes a really fabulous moisturizer, Keeps its beak incredibly moist so that it doesn't go brittle. You wouldn't want your beak to flake, right? And then the oil, in the presence of sunlight, turns into vitamin D. So it gets its vitamin dose as it grooms and moisturizes and waterproofs. Life has learned to illuminate, to create light, even at the bottoms of the depths, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters below the ocean surface. Life desalinates. It's a need that we have in an era where we're finding fewer and fewer sources of fresh water. These are mangroves that are able to live with their feet, with their roots in salt water, but yet get the fresh water that they need to grow as plants. Life has learned to cushion impacts. Your hedgehog here has an incredible, cool hexagonal structure inside of its spine that could offer really, really inspirational ideas for how we build structures that need to, like bumpers of cars, right? To cushion those impacts. Life has learned to cradle contents and create packaging that's durable, biodegradable, effective, even packaging life in a way that maintains the viability of what's inside. Life has to raise young, no different than we. Communicate over long distances. Elephants can actually send information to each other 10, 20, 30 kilometers away by using very, very low frequency vibrational sounds that they pick up through their feet, right? And so they can call their herd from great distances. Life has learned to circumnavigate the globe, just as we have, honing in on the magnetic poles, on the stars, and finding their way back home. A turtle can be at sea for 25, 30 years before it goes back to the beach from which it was born. Life has to move entities, sometimes incredibly great distances, 10,000 kilometers in a single flight for a barred-tailed godwit, all the way from from the Arctic to the southern tip of New Zealand. Life has learned to settle disputes, seldom with the bloodshed that we have, and often just in the form of play, right? And the sort of the wrestling matches that don't necessarily end up in death. And life has learned how to live cooperatively in community. All of these things that we ourselves thrive for and strive for and want as a species. And we're surrounded by genius. There's 30 million other species out there. 30 million other organisms and populations and systems that have learned how to live here for the long haul. And in all these cases, fostering abundance and richness, not just doing less harm, actually being regenerative. It's actually a benefit to have these species in these habitats, right? Imagine if we could say that collectively and consistently about ourselves as a species. Everywhere we look, life is creating conditions conducive to life. Shouldn't that be our motto as a species? If we could put in this line right here before this, that everything we do creates conditions conducive to life, then we could stand proud. I'm a parent, right? I could stand proud before my children and say, the heritage that I give you, what I am happy and proud of passing on to you is that I have worked, and what I have done, and what I've built, and what I've created, and what I've designed, and what I've communicated has been about creating conditions conducive to life. Imagine if that were our motto, our mission, our message. Because this is our home. This whole planet is our home. But the reality is it's not ours alone, right? We're not the only ones who would like to stick around for another few minutes, for another month or so, if we're lucky. Remembering that we are a very, very young species, right? We really are, we're kind of like toddlers, right? We are like toddlers. The challenge is that we act like teenagers, right? So teenagers don't know it all, but they think they know it all, right? That's a little bit where we are as a species. We think we know what it takes to live here on this planet. But if we could remind ourselves that we are very young, give ourselves a little bit of a break, because we're pretty hard on ourselves a lot. Like often ridiculing and criticizing ourselves for how much we have screwed up. But we're really young. We wouldn't treat our kids that way. Instead, we help them find a way to learn. And that's really what we need to be able to offer to everybody, to find the capacity within ourselves and within each other and within the communities and the people that we serve that helps them get into a space of learning how to be here.